am a massive fan of the Aixun T380 soldering station. I actually did a review on it on this channel a few years ago, and I have used it extensively since, and frankly, for me, it has been flawless. Today, though, we're going to take a look at something new from them called the T380, which takes a lot of what I really like about the T3A and puts it in a smaller, more portable platform. Now, just to be crystal clear, this soldering station was sent to me from Aixun for free. They have not paid me, though, to make this video. They've not seen this video before it's been published, and as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. We are going to be taking a look at this soldering station. I'm going to do some tests on it, but I'm not going to be going into some of the really deep testing that some of the other channels that do a lot more soldering iron-based content do, such as SGG and others. I'll let you go see them for the real meat and bones on things like temperature stability with an accurately calibrated tester and things like that. But what I will be doing is checking it for all of the major pitfalls that we should check a usual soldering iron for. Anyway, let's get on with it and let's take a look at what this T380 is all about. Now, if you've seen the T3A, it comes in two parts. You have the base station and then you have the soldering stand, which holds the iron, your tips and everything else. What Aixun has managed to do here is put all of that into one and create a station that's a lot more compact, but also has some really nice new features as well. Now, this is the first time I'm opening this up, so we're all on a journey on this one. Inside, we have a power supply. Wasn't expecting that. Okay, very Apple looking there. We have a USB-C to USB-C connection. We have a plug adapter. We have our soldering handle, which is the T210, which is the one I use the most. We have a tip, a screw, and then in here we have a battery. Okay, very interesting. And then we have the solder base stand itself. Now that is surprisingly heavy. And then if I just pop that out, we've got our little soldering arm stand there too. That is pretty much everything in here. So if we put that out of the way. Now, the really interesting thing about this is that they've combined, as I've said, everything into one. You've got the main solder station and everything in this one unit. But as you also saw, there was a battery here because not only does this station run off USB input power, it also runs off battery power as well, making it portable. And I'm using portable like that because this is a very heavy bit of kit. This is all metal, not plastic. That's cast. Really a massively solid piece of kit. You've got some rubber around there. We've got our solder white pad. We've got our solder stand here, which is adjustable as well if you want to adjust the positions. We've got our screen and stuff we'll look at. And then on the back, we've got our soldering iron input, our little battery bay door, I guess, and then our USB-C. Now, this is a completely new type of device from them compared to what we've had before. And as I did say, I'm actually a really big fan of the T3A. There has been a few comments around certain things on it, around grounded electronics when you're working on it. And I will talk about that a bit more when we do some more testing on this. So going in closer and walking around it, we've got some specs here on the side. So it supports input voltage range of 9 to 15 volt on the charge voltage, 80 watts of power. It supports power delivery and QC. It supports the handles of the T210 and the T115, and it has a supported temperature range of 100 to 450 degrees C. If we flip it over there, we can just see the T380 sticker, portable smart soldering station, and basically that's all there is to say there. Now, I'll be honest, it is heavy. It certainly is not the lightest bit of kit in the world. So whilst it is portable, you're definitely going to be knowing that you're carrying it with you. You're going to be putting it back in the box or putting it round or whatever sort of case you got it in. But the nice thing is you're not tethered to a power supply as a result of having that built-in battery. The battery that they have supplied with it is 7.4 volts, 2.6 amp hour or 19.24 watt hour. So it's obviously two 18650 cells in there, labeled there. Nice thing is you could actually get a bigger battery if you wanted to as well. Now to install this, there is this little cover on the back here. There we go. That opened up. We've then got a battery connection cable. I assume we drop the battery in like that. I just need to figure out which way. So that goes further in, giving us some space for the cable. And then we plug that in like that. I guess that just wraps in there like that at the back, leaving enough space for that connector. And then you just pop that on like that. Now, just quickly walking you around the rest of it. As I've said, this feels cast. I don't know if that's aluminium, but it's definitely cast. That's all metal there. We've got a little screen there. That's all metal too. We've got a rubber piece on the end of there, which just gives a nice sort of quality feel to it. The rubber around there feels nice. I'll be honest, there is a very real quality feel to the product. Everything feels nice and tight. That doesn't move. Does that come off? I don't know. We've got a rubber cover on there that will lift off. Does that? That just, it looks like a separate piece. And then on the bottom, you've just got these 3 rubber pads there as well to give it grip whilst on the desk. Sits nice and flat, no movement. Moving over to the included handle, we have a T210. There we go. Now this doesn't support the T245. This supports the T10 or the T115, and it is a different connector. Now this plugs into the back of the iron just like that there. It's got a button to push in clip, so that's in nice and easy. If you were traveling, you'd want to obviously take that out. And they have included a single tip with it. The tip they've included is a chisel tip, so we will use that one. And they do have C210. Let's just get that out. There we go. Only one tip included in the box, but you can get lots of other tips. And these are thinner than the T245 tips. Sorry, I was out the way there. It's an Aixun tip, and that then will just push in. But the nice thing is you do have this area at the top here, so we would align and put it in just like that. Also included with this kit is this other little holder. You get this that pops on the side there, and they include a thumb screw, and this allows you to sort of hold the iron hot up in the air. It's not personally what I use, but it is there available if you want it. And about the only other 2 things to mention is these little foam sort of grips for the handles. These are available to fit onto the iron. The idea of these is if this area gets too hot, it can get quite hot at times, especially if you're using higher temperatures. You can install one of these over onto the iron, which just gives a bit of additional grip, so it makes it a bit thicker around the iron to hold on to, but it also insulates your fingers from the heat as well. I don't tend to use these, and we will talk about handle temperature a bit more later on as well. Now, just to walk you through the menus, and then we'll take a look at it in real world use. So to turn it on, we press and hold the center button. You can see it boots up. On the screen, it gives us some status information as well as what is currently going on. So we're T380, T210 soldering handle. It's telling us the device temperature. Battery level in the corner. It's telling us it's on snooze, current temperature, and it says set to 280, and that little bar on the bottom is the power percentage the iron is using, and it's got a percentage indicator there. So for instance, if I just lift the handle out, you will start to see that it kicks in. It's currently set to 280 degrees. It then used a load of power to get to 280, and it's come down, and it's already there up to temperature. If I then pop the handle back in, it then goes back into standby. If we press the button again, we've got modes. So we've got M1, M2, M3, and these are just memory modes. So you can have preset temperatures on these. So you can see we've got 280, 350, and 400, and you just cycle through. And again, if I just lift the handle, it'll jump to the temperature that has been set via that memory position, and then pop it back in and it goes down. If you want to reset what they are, so for instance, we've got 280, 350, and 400. If I wanted that 400 to be for, say, 20, so we can go up. You can set it and do a one-off change, and it will save until you reboot. But if you wanted to permanently set that memory position, you would then just press and hold both buttons, and then that's saved 420 to M3. So that is the default position. Or I could just set it to 400, do it again, and set it from there. To turn this off, what you've got to do is press and hold the center button. It'll then come into the button function menu, and if you press and hold until the end, it says confirm shutdown. Press that, and the unit will turn itself off. If we turn it back on, we'll then hop into the main menu. Now, to enter that, what you do is press and hold and wait for that screen to come up, and then release, and then you press the down, which is this one here, and then we can start to scroll through the options. So if we go through, you can see we've got language options. If I select that, you can select English or Chinese. This one is the back. Go down to sound, hit that. We can turn that on and off. I'm going to turn that off. You press the center button to do it, and then that one to go back. And now we finally got rid of the beep. We can go down to unit, set it Celsius or Fahrenheit. So I want to set that to Celsius is what I want for that one. And then go back. We can then go down. We've got reset option, which allows you to reset the device. We don't want to do that. We've got time, which allows us to set the boot time, which tells us what the boot time is, as well as the time on the device itself. This gives us the boot time as well as the total time on the device down here as well. And then if we go back and go down to system info, here it gives us the version number, the firmware version number. I'm not sure if we can scroll on to anything else. No, nothing else on that one. And then we can go to unit. And that is pretty much it. Everything is fairly simple. Everything is fairly straightforward. Now, what this doesn't have is some of the more advanced sleep and control options that you do get on the likes of the T3A, but it has all of the main basic functionality. You've got presets, which you can set the temperatures to. You can control the basic menu functions. And again, what's nice about this is you can use it as a standalone or with the USB-C. Now, as it has a built-in battery, obviously people are going to want to know how long it will work for. And they say around 40 minutes on temperatures up to 400 degrees C. That battery is charged via that USB-C input on the back. They do supply that 90-watt adapter in the kit, but that input does support QC and power delivery. And as a result of that, you can charge it off other compatible devices, such as portable power stations and anything that does support the power delivery QC protocol. So whilst you do have a limited time on the internal battery, you can charge it from multiple different types of devices whilst out on the go. Now, there is something else very interesting about this solder station. That is the fact that alongside it being battery powered, it also has a built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module. Now, at the point of me making this video, there is no app for it. There's no way to use it, but Aixun have said that they will be releasing the option in the future to use it. Hopefully you'll be able to do things like update the firmware, and it'll be interesting to see what other functionality comes around that. Now, I've just plugged the iron in with the included 96-watt adapter. None of these ends actually fitted, obviously, here in the UK. However, the ends of my actual Apple adapter did fit, which means I could plug it in the socket. Now, it is currently plugged in. There doesn't appear to be any indication on the top of the iron here that it is plugged in. You can see the battery level there. There doesn't seem to be anything to say that, hey, you're using it on USB power. There's no charge indicator there for the battery. I think what we'll do is just keep an eye on that over time, and I'll discuss that later on in the video just to explain what my findings are around that. Now, I just unplugged the USB-C cable and plugged it back in, and I'm now getting this charging sort of indicator. We've got it jumping from 2 to 3 cells. I'm going to assume that means it's charging. I'm going to keep an eye on it, as I did say just now. but it does look like that is indicating that some form of charge is in progress. Okay, now just to do the 2P test I like to do with some soldering irons, what I'm going to do is pop some flux on the 2P here, just so it is able to take the solder. And what we're going to do is test its wetting performance, and if we can actually get the solder to stick to the 2P and not just roll around on the surface, and more than anything, see if this iron can put in enough power to allow it to actually stick to the surface. So I'm going to put a bit of solder on, and as you can see there, we're driving in about 30% power at the moment. What is going to be a challenge on this iron is the tip size that I've got here. So for instance, if you see there, whilst the solder is wet, it's just moving around on the surface. It's not actually sticking to the 2P. What I want to do is get enough there and see if we can wet it enough. So I'm just going to get the iron at the right position and put enough solder there that hopefully we can then try and get it to actually stick to the surface of the 2P, and then sort of move it around and allow it to spread. So again, I'm just going to hold it there. You can see it's driving in power. It's heating that 2P at the moment. It's heating that up. So what we're going to do is just let it do that and see if it is able to actually get that in for me. It's definitely getting hotter. That I can see. Just going to lift that back, put a bit more solder on. There we go. Let that pool. And now see if we can get that to actually properly wet and stick to the surface. There we go. After a bit of time of holding it there, it has now actually properly stuck to the surface. It's no longer rolling about on the surface of the 2P. You can see me spreading that around. The solder is actually sticking to the copper. It took about a minute for me to be able to do that on this tip size, but there you can see now it has been able to get the heat in. It has been able to wet that and get the soldering pretty good. Now this tip is ideal for things like you see on this board here. This is an old Xbox 360 PCB. It's been butchered a lot over the years. It's like a test board that I use really. And the idea of this is just to give me something to play with. Here you can see it's ideal for things like these capacitors that you see here, here. What we'll do, I think, is try to get one of these ones out. So if I just move to there, I'll just put my finger underneath there. I can feel that we've got that one and that one. These boards can be notoriously hard to work on with regards to actually getting components off. They use lead-free solder. I'm at the probably extreme of the tip size here. Well, what we're doing is we're wetting the solder there. We're going to get some, there we go, that's good. And then we're going to do the same with that one. Good. Then if I'm just going to reach my finger underneath, just so I can give the component a pull. There we go. That side there. That side there. There we go. That came off nice and easily. If we flip the board over, we've got lots of different components under this side of the board. Let me just pop something under it there. You can see we've got things like these FETs down here. This iron isn't necessarily ideal for removing things like that, but we will be able to go in there, wet the legs. I don't think there's much flux in this solder that I'm using here, but there we go. We were able to wet him. Then just get in there. I'm doing it cack-handed. I can't quite get in the way I usually would. Just put a bit more and let that. There we go. That's got the heat into that pad there as well. There we go. So you can see it's able to work on boards like this, no problem at all. If you wanted something to be able to work on the bigger components on here, so for instance, you're going to want to remove things like these inductors and stuff like that, you're going to need a slightly bigger tip. But this is the kind of size component and devices that you'd want to use a device like this on. We've got that transistor there. Let me just spin him round. Let's see if we can actually wet the top pad on that one as well. Yeah, no problem at all. Just get a bit more on him there. There we go. It's able to wet that, no issues. In fact, you could easily use this to actually remove this kind of component. I would usually use hot air, but it just gives you an idea that the station is able to get heat into a board like this without any problems. Now, just to cover a couple of specific things before I move on to my final thoughts, I've done a bunch of testing on this iron, and overall, everything works as expected. I have checked the handle temperature, and I've got no complaints. I've not found myself needing to use that little foam cover. It is a shame, though, that you can only use this with the T115 or the T210. I would have loved to have used this iron with the T245 that I use on my T3A. That is the standard handle that I use. This could be a little bit limiting for people who do work on some of the bigger stuff. This is absolutely ideal for general everyday soldering, but if you did want a larger handle with a larger tip selection, that may be better on the T245. I have also checked the situation with grounding. There was some quirks that people found on the T3A that if you were working on something that was grounded, the tip of the iron was also grounded to the pin on the back, and that could actually cause the iron's temperature to fluctuate and do some weird stuff. I haven't tested for that issue specifically because it's not one I even saw on my T3A, but I can confirm that the tip of this iron is grounded to the metal sheath of that USB-C connector, that metal outside area, so it is worth understanding that. It isn't something I've seen as an issue, but what is the great thing about this iron is that it has the built-in battery, so if that is a problem for you, pull the USB out and you can just simply use it on the internal battery power. I do want to highlight one little quirk that I found with this device that hopefully they will fix in the future, and that is around the external power supply and turning it off. When using it on its battery, turning it on and off, as I showed you earlier, works absolutely fine. However, I have found a quirk on my unit that when you turn it off, it doesn't actually turn off and it crashes the display if you have the USB-C connected. There is then this weird situation that if you unplug the USB-C and try and turn it off, it will turn off, but it turns itself back on again and you have to turn it off again. Now, just to demonstrate this little quirk, it's currently on battery power. So if I press and hold the center button to turn it off, press and wait, press the center button, it shuts down absolutely fine. If I plug in our USB-C connection, now I'm not actually using their adapter at this moment in time. I have tested it with theirs. I'm currently using a portable power station, but it does exactly the same thing. As you see, when you plug in USB-C, it turns itself on. But if I now try and turn it off, if I press and hold to power down, it comes up with a shutdown screen. I can swap between the options, but it won't actually shut down. It completely ignores the input. The only way for me to be able to turn it off at this point is pull out the power cable, it reboots and comes back to the screen. The weird thing, though, is this. If I now try to tell it to turn off, press and hold, confirm, it does turn off, but what it sometimes does is then turn itself back on again. What it won't do the first time necessarily after unplugging the power supply is always stay off. Now, it has to be some form of firmware quirk on the unit, and hopefully I have sent the info to them and they'll be able to resolve it in the near future. This is a firmware quirk and it does need to be addressed because I don't like the fact that the power unit turns itself back on. The soldering iron, even though it is in this stand here, it shouldn't be able to do that, and hopefully that's just something they'll be able to fix in a future firmware update. Okay, so just to share with you some thoughts and some of my findings on the T380. I've been using it for about a week and a half. I've done some repairs on some devices. I fixed my Xbox controller. And I've been doing some tests around the workshop here as well. And I have to say, I really like this. This is a rather unusual product compared to what we've seen before, but I like the idea that they've gone with, because this here is my T3A, and I think this is a fantastic soldering iron or solder station. It is my main unit. It is over there. It is used virtually continuously, and it has worked for me flawlessly. It isn't, though, portable, and if I want to move it over to this bench or move it over to one of my other benches over there, you end up having to move both these units. You've got to put in a kettle plug connector, and it's all just a bit of a faff. What I like about this is it is that device in a better platform, and instead of having to move all of this, it's just this. And whilst it's certainly not the most portable device in the world, if you're someone who has shortage of space on the bench, or you're after an iron that you can pick up and move around in work areas and not have to worry about power, it is absolutely worth a look. For me, the way I would set this up is I would put it in one area with the USB there on permanent connection if I wanted it, and then if I need to move it around, you can unplug it and use it on battery. Yes, it's not going to last forever on battery, but it certainly allows you to get tasks done, and I really like the way they've decided to put that into this kind of package. Now, this, whilst it is in many ways similar to the T3A, it isn't identical, and there are many things this doesn't have compared to the T3A. For instance, it doesn't have some of the more advanced standby options. Right now, when you put the handle into the cradle, it fully shuts it down. It doesn't have a standby temperature option. There aren't any of the advanced standby options on this either, like we have on the T3A, but that isn't to say they won't be able to bring that to these in the future. Now, price-wise, the T380, as you've seen it here today with the 210 tip, is available for $98. In the UK, that is coming in at $73.55, and I actually think that is an incredible price considering what you're getting here. It is also available in different kits as well, so you can get it with the T115 tip, which is $132.15, and then there are other kits with multiple different tips available too. So again, you can choose the version you want. You can also choose the version with voltage down there too. Overall, I have to say, I really like it. I'm looking forward to using it on the bench over the next few weeks and months. And as I've said, I will do a follow-up video on this at some point in the future. But here and now, I'd probably recommend this over the T3A or T3B. This, for me, is pretty much perfect for the kind of soldering that I do. Whilst it's not going to be perfect for everyone with this handle size, it would be great to get it in a T245. However, I do think it will suit many people's needs. I want to say a big thank you to Aixun for sending this over, and there will be a link to it in the description if you're interested in getting one. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. I'm really interested in knowing what you think. Any comments, any questions, please do put them down below. Stay safe, and I will speak to you soon.